Good evening. Today is October 16, 2020, and this is a special episode and edition and the 21st episode of New Paradigms. I'm your host, Sargis Sangari, the Republican nominee for the U.S. Congress in the 9th Congressional District of Illinois. My guest today is a dear friend of mine, Michael Yon, who I know to be the most experienced living combat correspondent today. Michael is a former Green Beret, native of Winter Haven, Florida, who was writing from Iraq and Afghanistan from December of 2004. No other writer has spent as much time with combat troops in the two wars combined. Michael's dispatches from the front lines earned him the reputation as a premier independent combat writer of our generation. His work has been featured on Good Morning America, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Times, CNN, ABC, Fox, internationally on Japan Forward, Thai PBS, Vice News, and is a regular on John Batchelor's show and has been a guest on Steve Bannon War Room Pandemic, as well as hundreds of other major outlets around the world, to include our show. Michael had previously written a critically acclaimed memoir, Danger Close. He was authoring another book when two of his closest friends died on consecutive days in Iraq. Following the accounts in the American press, Michael became very concerned that we were losing the war. At the same time, his friends in the military said that the media was not telling the truth or the whole story. Not wanting to take any sides in the arguments over the war, Michael simply wanted to learn the truth for himself and to do it without fear or favor when it comes to writing. So being a silent professional and a SF soldier and a conventional warrior, he decided to do what they always do, and he went to the combat zone in Iraq, financing his trip from his own pocket for more than half a year, then eventually receiving generous contributions from readers of his online magazine, MichaelYonOnline.com. As early as February 2005, Michael described the violence in Iraq as a civil war. In 2006, he said we were losing in Afghanistan. In 2007, he was the first writer to claim the success of the surge. When he first voiced these opinions, they were extremely controversial. Now they are the conventional wisdom of the time. In 2006, Michael published his second book, Moment of Truth in Iraq, which is packed with exciting and heart-rending tales from the battlefield. In May 2005, he took a picture of a U.S. Army Major, Mark Bejer, cradling an Iraqi girl named Farah, wounded by shrapnel from a car bomb. When the little girl was being medevaced to an American hospital, she succumbed to her wounds. This photo, which is featured on the cover of the book Moment of Truth in Iraq, has been overwhelmingly attributed as the monumental photo that turned the tide against the insurgency in Mosul. As he covered the two wars, Michael also focused on the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, and Chinese expansions in Southeast Asia and its information operation campaigns against the United States and the regional and global allies as it bullied its way across the globe, focusing on our soils. When he realized that China was not going to leave Hong Kong alone, regardless of the international pressures, and was on the ground after the second largest protest in late June 2019. Michael has covered multiple wars, multiple insurgencies, has seen them, and has fought against them. Michael today is back here at home, taking a look at what is happening in America. But before I introduce my friend here, we are going to see a short glimpse of Michael's work in Hong Kong.
So this is it. This is storming the castle. Some drama's going on down here. You need the oil. There's a squeaking armor from the police. They don't have the mask.
Michael, it's good to have you here, buddy. We've come a long way since February of 2015 when we were on stage. You were warning about China's information operations to the Japanese, and I was talking about what China might be looking at as far as the Middle East is concerned. Today we have you here with a photo. You're on the phone. It is not safe to be able to be on video while you're here in the States covering what is happening around the Portland area. But welcome to New Paradigms, buddy.
Hey, Sargis. Great to talk with you again. Yeah, it's been a long path since we first met in Japan, and then later we were together in Thailand working on the same issues. Now here we are again.
Yeah, you know, things don't change, really, when you think about it. The same characters are always on the ground. You know, geography really doesn't change, and some of the same actors internationally are the ones that are constantly expanding their footprint, whether it be in Japan, across Southeast Asia, in the Middle East, and even in the United States. I know I have a small video that we had when we were speaking in Japan. If we could get that rolling, that might bring back some memories.
日本は70カ国の中でも最も素晴らしい国の一つだということが言えます。皆さんはとてもラッキーです。
As a short glimpse of how the Chinese actually monitor what anybody is doing when we're out there. I remember you were giving your speech on the comfort woman issue and how China was trying to use it as an information operation to really sever sometimes between American allies, whether it be Japan or South Korea, or even internally in the United States, to ensure they cause bad blood between allies as it wants to expand. And, you know, those were your Chinese operators in that briefing as we stood to give that talk during the Japanese anti-terrorism conference.
Yeah, you know, it's come a long way. It's almost like the, you know, same program, different channel. You know, that it's not that all of the issues in the United States are from China. That of course is untrue. But China is certainly involved in our problems, just as they are in Taiwan, just as they're involved in many of the problems in South Korea, and also Japan, of course, and Philippines. I mean, they are a global player on information war, and a lot of people underestimate the power of information war. Information war, if done well, is as powerful as having a military, and in some cases even far more powerful. And I mean, you can change entire countries using nothing more than information warfare, and it's done on a regular basis. But since there's no hot cannons, well, sometimes there are, it's not quite as obvious to a lot of people. But right now in the United States, for instance, up in your area, you know, the subject of information war, you know, the left wing have been, you know, marching on us for generations. And look at what it's led to here in Portland. I mean, Portland is just overrun with homeless people, like feeding the ducks. I mean, drug addicts camped out all over the sidewalks. It's very dangerous to walk there at daytime, much less nighttime. And then there's Antifa and BLM. I was out at a Antifa BLM rally recently in Portland, and they were on the megaphones calling for mass genocide against white people. And by the way, they include everybody as white people that's not them, right? That includes Hispanics, Asians, everybody, Middle Easterners. We're all white people, right? And then likewise, they were calling for mass arson. And this is, by the way, Antifa calling for this, not BLM. It's Antifa under the guise of BLM, but they were actually together with BLM. They were actually together on stage. I mean, I was out there with them, calling on loudspeakers for genocide and for mass arson. And then meanwhile, when mass arson did happen, we saw mainstream media saying, no, don't believe your lying eyes. That was not Antifa or BLM. That was just something else. That was right-wing lunatics or lightning or something else or fireworks, which at least one or two of the fires were definitely accidental. But it was also clear that many were from arson. That was obvious. Some were actually caught doing it. There was videos and everything else. So yeah, information war is extremely powerful, and it leads to kinetic or other sorts of physical warfare.
Well, look, you and me understand that because we participated in them. We fought against insurgencies. We had, when we were fighting, and I was running the Syrian army forces in Iraq and Syria. They were definitely on the ground even then, as far as Antifa was concerned. As I told you, one of my commanders in Syria was killed in 2015 in an ambush by the YPG Kurds, which are a socialist group at that time. Antifa, both Europe and America were flying their flags, and they were there when that operation took place against my commander. So, but all these are still somehow internationally kind of tied together. They get their local support here. As you said, the local politicians kind of pour fuel on the fire. I know that a lot of these characters that you see in the Antifas, especially in the Chicago area, were the same individuals that originally were part of the groups that Project Veritas busted in my district, where the husband of the current incumbent had been tasked with trying to disrupt Trump rallies when he was running the first time. And these individuals will filter in and out. They find their way to latch on to the politicians through these networks. And unfortunately, they also do find a way of getting international money fed into their pockets, which in this case, again, as you mentioned, Burma. I know that we were on the ground. We initially looked at how the Chinese conglomerate was actually very significant there. And thanks to your help and all the work we did, I was able to come back here, put our report together for our National Security Council, and also had an opportunity to go to Australia and show how deep China had already moved through their conglomerates in Australia. So, this is where we are at today. I want to be able to show a couple of the pictures from our gatherings, if possible, and then we'll try to get into some of the short videos that you have shot while you're in Portland.
Let's do it. I'm looking forward to seeing them. It's very important that you win your election. These local elections, it's not just local. I mean, you're running for U.S. Congress. That's very substantial. But they have severe effects. A lot of people discount the importance of local elections. For instance, here in Portland, it's the mayors and the city council have created conditions in Portland that this place is unlivable for a lot of people. They're moving away. People who grew up here are moving to places like Idaho. This is the result of local elections, not presidential elections. Local elections have rendered this place unlivable for a lot of people.
Well, Michael, that's where it starts, right? Look, you know how to run an insurgency. I know how to run an insurgency. You know better how to run a counterinsurgency, and that's where they start. They start filtering into these areas through local elections at the lowest levels. Look what happened even here in the 9th congressional district. I've had the mayor of one of the cities in my district come to me and say, look, we cannot deal with this far left socialist ideology. Where is it filtering through? It's coming through the trusteeship. That's where the money is collected and kept at the local level. So that's how they filter. And now they're starting to expand into the suburbs, especially in my district, where we have the some of Chicago, but we have the rest of it being in the northern suburbs of Illinois. And they're going to continue to do that as long as the voter keeps on voting along what they call their party lines. They have to realize what is going on. I had written that article, Local Terrorism is a Global Problem, going back to 2015. And it really focused as to where we are headed today and where we are today. So I do commend you for really taking money out of your pocket and really being engaged, People say, why do servicemen do it? Why does Michael do these things? We do it because we lost buddies on the battlefield. And I lost friends, and we didn't have our friends go die overseas, so Americans here can rip each other to pieces and turn over this country to these socialist ideologies that have failed across the globe.
Yeah, people are voting themselves into oblivion. It's almost like democracy. If you've got the wrong voter base there, not almost, it's, you know, those sorts of democracies will commit suicide. It's like feeding the ducks. You know, they're feeding the ducks with somebody else's duck feed, and eventually you get more and more ducks. Like here, ducks are sleeping on the sidewalks all over Portland, committing crimes, violent crimes, including, look on the internet and look at the murder rate in Portland. It's going to be more than double this year, probably what it was last year. That's just in 1 year, and it's all because of local policy. It's all because of, you know, giving away free stuff. So you're feeding the ducks. More people are coming in, and then you're making a vacuum, a power vacuum here that allows organizations like, and Antifa is an organization, allowing organizations like Antifa to have room to breathe, to commit arsons, run people out of their businesses, beat people up, commit murders. They have committed murders. They are a terrorist organization by any stretch of the imagination. If they were not in America, if they were in any other country in the world, we would instantly label them a terrorist organization, because that's what they are. And yet, for political reasons, we don't call Antifa a terrorist organization or BLM, despite the fact that they've already committed mass murders that we know of and have been on camera many, many times. And so that's what you have to win, Sargis. It's very important that you and other people like you win in this election.
Well, Mike, we're trying. All we could do is get into the fight, right? People ask me, why did you decide to run into one of the toughest districts possible, where the machine just keeps on manufacturing votes? I'll give you an example. Just a day ago, I was on a Zoom call with my opponent. You know, we call them debates. They weren't really debates. It was a question and answer period. But even during that time, I'm able to, you know, hit her a couple of times. By the time we got to a 7th question, I was hitting her so hard. And every time I suddenly opened my mouth and tried to link her to the stories that tie her to socialism, I got knocked off. Tried to come back in again.
We're having a signal problem. I'm only picking you up about 10% of the time at this point.
You see, because I use the word socialism, so that's the way it goes. Every time you use that word, your stuff gets interrupted.
I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, buddy. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, yeah. Now I hear you starting to come in.
That's okay. We're going to give you a chance to come
It's
back to
broken
us.
up. We've lost signal. There you are.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to run those videos for you, because I know you're on the ground. So this thing happens while you're on the ground. Let's run those videos. Show what Mike has been able to capture in Portland.
And in Hong Kong, when I cover these, I like to be, they just arrested somebody.
He's going. He's going to get We gotta move. Stay here. Now walk slow. He's gonna go get one. They're gonna walk over. Stay good. I got you. Stay there. Stay there, you're good. Got your back.
Let's see what they do.
Oh, they just threw him in the road. They got him in the road.
Bro, they had my boy in the truck. Right as they opened it, he dipped. He just dipped.
They got him. You're good. Okay. Stay out of the road. They're masoning now. Hold on. Like dip in here for a sec.
Yeah.
A little bit blocked.
Look, a closed McDonald's. That's not something you see everywhere. And also the newspapers are mostly empty. Sorry. Burned out. Maybe they published something they didn't want to hear.
Portland. Downtown Portland.
Just a damn smoke grenade. It's not.
Yeah. Not serious. Just smoke.
Mike, I hope we have you back. It's a shame that these are American cities. This is one of our American cities that we're looking at. You've covered issues in both Hong Kong and also here, protest-wise. Can you tell me what you think is the difference on their approaches on protests? I think we lost Mike. These things happen when you're on the ground. As we're going to try to get Mike back on to have him log back in, look, I will tell you that Mike is doing a yeoman's work. To all my buddies out there who are in the military service, I am very, in one way, I am somewhat, can be said that I'm prejudiced. The fact that I think we need to run as many military guys as we can, and both as Democrats and Republicans. Now, the Democrats have done a pretty good job of going out there and creating these organizations. Republicans have been slow in the process to get guys and gals that can run as Democrats. But you cannot run them as far left socialist ideologues. You cannot tie them to Tricom money. So it behooves us as guys who understand the realities of what's happening on the ground to try to run our guys both as many times as possible in local politics. Mike, do I have you on, buddy?
Yeah, I called back.
Good. We knew these things happen. It's okay. Mike, I was asking you a question. You've been in, don't use the word socialism. If you do, they knock you out. Welcome to big tech. It happened to me recently, and that's why they constantly hit us. And I know you probably have some experience with that, even with major media. But I wanted to ask your opinion on protests that you have seen, both in Hong Kong and here. What is the difference of their approach?
Well, it's funny because some people like Tom Ricks have brought it up. You know, the Pulitzer Prize winning Tom Ricks, he's a friend of mine. He's sort of left wing though. Tom Ricks brought up to me, you know, maybe a month or so ago, why is it that in Hong Kong I supported the protesters against the police, but here I support the police against the protesters? And he thought that that was, let's say, ironic maybe. I don't know, that wasn't his exact word, but well, it's obvious. I'm anti-communist, right? I'm not anti-police. I'm not anti-protester. Protesting is very important in the United States. It's part of what helped our country become great. We have to have the ability to protest. It's vital. It's important. And that's one of the things that Hong Kong has too. Hong Kong is known as the city of protest because they've had many protests ever since Hong Kong's inception. And so they're famous for protests, thousands per year, literally. But usually they're small, like 50 people, 100 people, 400 people, something like that. But a big difference is in Hong Kong, they're fighting against communism. Here in the United States, a lot of people are fighting for communism. And communism, I've spent years with communists in communist countries. I lived in Poland for 2 years during transition. I was in East Germany when it was East Germany, not Eastern Germany. You know, Czechoslovakia when it was Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Laos, so many others, China, many times. You don't want to live in a communist country. They all suck. Not a single one of them has been nice. They suck the energy out of people. And that's what you see. Look at here in Portland. They're clearly marching straight towards communism. And I mean communism with a C. They're marching straight into it. And the place is already a pathetic mess. People are moving out. The tax base that they rely on to feed the ducks is going to leave. It is leaving. It's departing from Portland. This place is going to collapse.
Illinois is going to lose 2 congressional districts. That's a fact. And they're going to have to make a decision of which 2 congressional districts have to depart. The reason that they're trying now with this socialist ideology to move into these small segments and these areas that these supposedly sophisticated intellectuals sit in, as we used to call them, they call themselves PhDs. We in the Army used to call them piled higher and deeper. These individuals, 30% of Americans have had a college education, Mike. And out of that 30%, most of them sit with an education with a 4-year college. A lot of those other ones have gone through schools that trained this Marxist ideology. The same teachers that were taught the Iranian students that the Shah sent to United States to be educated, to become great champions of his nation, went back, toppled the government, and then got all whacked by the Islamists. And the same pattern you can see here, where you have those teachers that taught other teachers. And now we're in a position where, unfortunately, these individuals have sucked enough money out of the city. They don't know where to go, so they're starting to infiltrate into the suburbs. They're going to kill the businesses in the suburbs. These PhDs, they think that they're much more smarter than guys like you and me who've been on the ground, who've seen what communism does, who've been covering it going back, for me, 2015 in the Middle East, you even farther back, and is now seeing what is being done to our cities from what was initially planted in these so-called educational systems to topple our government going back now almost 40 plus years.
Yeah, the whole PhD thing does not impress me with a lot of the sort of degrees that they're handing out. I study just as hard as they do. I read, I don't know, I've read thousands of books in my life. I probably have read, 50 this year so far, right? I study like crazy, and I'm not reading Harry Potter books. I mean, I've read over 40 books on pandemic, as an example, before this pandemic happened. So, I'm just not impressed by the idea that PhD equals some sort of above average knowledge on things. When you and I are out there, I've lived more than half my life in other countries, 75 countries in total, 48 United States I've either lived in or traveled in. I've seen the battlefields. I've seen the playing fields. I've seen what happens when socialists or communists. What's the difference? I know people will say, what? You don't know the difference? Listen, it doesn't matter. It's a different temperature of flame, right? The bottom line is all of these places end up going downhill in a big, big way. Some just go downhill faster than others. And right now, for instance, in Portland, we have the pandemic economy unfolding. At the same time, we have the homeless people just invading downtown and other areas, causing businesses to leave. We have police working overtime to fight Antifa and BLM. So we have about 1/3 of the police have already left in Portland just this year, right? So they're paying millions of dollars in overtime. This local economy in Portland will collapse, period. It's going to collapse. I've seen it so many times. It's highly predictable. And when that happens, where's the tax base going to be? It's going to be in places like Idaho. And then this place will just be a horrific place to live. The property prices will plummet. All the people that can leave will leave. And it'll be another dystopia. And this is a story that is as predictable as tomorrow's sunrise.
Well, the politician doesn't care, because the politician is going to turn around and benefit from China coming in and using our tax dollars to buy those pieces of property for themselves, literally buying our nation, as they use information operation against us and have our own sons and daughters try to destroy us from within. Look, Mike, I know you're a little bit short on time, buddy. I know you're very much busy on the ground over there. I want you to really be safe, protect yourself. But before we go, let me know, what do you think? I mean, it is a shame. First of all, I'm happy to have my friend here back at home in the United States. I'm glad that we have a battle buddy here. I'm trying to do my piece here, fighting against the machine to try to get into Congress. And I know you're doing your piece on the ground there. Do you see a possibility of us being able to conduct a counterinsurgency for the better terms, and in order to be able to maybe make some changes needed to quell this thing as we're heading to the 3 November election.
Oh, absolutely. And number one is for people like you to win your corner. You've got to win your part of the fight and become, and get elected. And then when we all fight our corner well, we will win. The bottom line is a lot of what has happened has been due to apathy. I mean, for instance, here there's so many wealthy people in Portland who still, despite everything that's happened, still are in denial. And this is normal, by the way. This isn't just specific to Portland. This is normal throughout time. Even as the Nazis were gaining power in Germany before World War II, there were many Jews who thought, they're not going to do anything too bad. And there were Jews who sided with the Nazis all the way up to the point where they were put in ovens. I mean, this is and people can say, well, you're exaggerating. No, I'm not. Not at all. This is exactly what's unfolding here. And it's just a lot of people are still in denial. And there's only so far that you can deny the fire until it's in your yard.
Well, you mentioned the ovens in Germany, the concentration camps. They were being built 4 years prior. A delegation of Jews came to the United States, tried to convince American Jews here that, listen, this is about to happen to us. But business didn't care, and American Jews did not pay attention until it was too late. And then we had the Holocaust. I know you and me been in war, and it's funny, even with soldiers who are being trained to conduct combat operations, battle drills, sometimes you would see some of them where somebody would walk up to them, point the gun, and you wouldn't see a reaction out of them. Thank God others were able to react before that soldier did. And to them, even in combat, although they were trained, to them it was like, why would the guy want to shoot me? He wants to shoot you because you're the enemy. And I think, unfortunately,
Right.
Until people personally get killed and injured, their property is destroyed, they will still walk in and vote along party lines for the socialist agenda. In 2015, we said it, that as the previous administration bought in hand in glove to what the Chinese vision was for the global requirement of where they wanted to be, the same characters are now in display and they're running for policy, and it's possible within 20 days that same organizational structure will come back and possibly be the lead in the United States. That means China is going to be the lead. So, Mike, I'll do my best here, buddy, but I want you to be as safe as possible. For us guys, if you want to help us, please go to www.votesangari.com, donate and support. And Mike, if people want to read about you, take a look at what you're doing, where can they go to read more about your dispatches and what you're putting out there for us to understand what's happening in our own country?
I fund everything through online, for instance, by PayPal and on Patreon. I publish on Patreon. I'll publish our interview on Patreon as an example. And I'm on Twitter every day. So it's Michael_Yon. My last name is Y-O-N, Yankee Oscar November, Y-O-N, Michael Yon. That's on Twitter. And so I'm on Twitter every day. I'll often put things on Twitter that I don't, it's too short to write something big about, but it can be important though.
Have you been getting banned at all? Have you had issues with big tech?
Oh yeah. Facebook banned me for 5 weeks. They just reinstated it about a week ago, and I don't know why. I don't have any idea. I'm not out, basically I talk on Facebook the way I just talked with you. I'm not cursing. I'm not calling for violence. I'm just calling, out what's happening. For instance, with China, with their attacks on Hong Kong. And whenever I talk about China, things get, I'm apt to get banned. Whenever I talk about, Black Lives Matter and BLM BLM and Antifa actually calling for arson and these sorts of things, which they do. We see them doing. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've heard it with my own ears. I've been physically present. But to then say this can get you banned.
You know, I have that article that I wrote with the Near East in 2015, and even going back to the article out of Japan, that we said, you know, if we do not stop this now, eventually we're going to have to get to a point where it's going to be stopped at the point of the gun. And unfortunately, it seems like we are where we are because guns have been used on our streets to settle this. And I have told people, and I've lived through a revolution, and as I said, the socialists came in, fought, and the Islamists shot them all up. These individuals who I've seen, and some of the Antifa here are guys and gals that I've seen that have walked around with $5,000 cameras around their neck. These are not the people who are going to put a suicide bomb vest on them, run into a location, blow themselves off for a higher cause as they believe. It is nothing more than money driven. They think that they're going to have the final say, but unfortunately, if they keep on pushing it, sometimes revolutions end up where you're going to start washing the blood off the streets using your own blood. And it's unfortunate,
That's right.
but I hope that they realize that it's not going to work out well for any of us. I'll have you have the last word, Mike, and then we'll depart.
Well, I'm going to, as soon as we get offline, I'm going straight into a meeting, and I've been meeting with so many people every day, whether it's Proud Boys. Sometimes I'm out with Antifa, and they haven't figured out who I am yet, but they will, and then it will become very dangerous. Law enforcement all the time, local people, business people. So I'm learning everything that I can here in Portland and Vancouver areas, and I'll go up to Seattle here shortly for about a week or 2 weeks, and then come right back here to Portland. Actually, I want to be in Portland for the elections, which I think could be very serious here in Portland. Serious violence, no matter who wins.
Yeah, unfortunately, Portland hasn't cleared their rolls since '73, and most of it is mail-in ballot. Guess what's going to happen on the ground? With that said, Mike, God blessing. You know, you got my direct number. Anything happens, you know, I'll be right there on the street with you. Okay, buddy?
I'm always here to help. All right, talk with you later, Sargis.
Okay.
And all right, bye-bye.
God bless. Okay, and this is New Paradigms.
The founders of this nation did not create a land of opportunity by growing government. They did it by reducing its powers, particularly when the government of the King of England did not provide them with representation. The U in the United States originally was not capitalized, but the S in the states was, meaning that the states were like semi-sovereign nations. Governance was more local and solutions were often more interpersonal rather than political. We have moved into an age where politicians act like agents of a larger special interest rather than representatives of the people, and as a result, liberty has been compromised. With your help, Lieutenant Colonel Sangari can fight this corruption and end this Middle Eastern non-democratic mentality of keeping an official in his or her seat for life, or replacing them by their own hand, pick subservient, and finally start focusing on collective American effort on actually representing the needs of all the constituents in the 9th Congressional District, including Democratic and Independent Americans, for our benefit, and not to advance the position of a single political party or person in our America again, advocating for honoring and empowering the American dream for all. VOTESANGARI, honoring and empowering the American dream.
I am Sargis Sangari, and I approve this message.